Hello and welcome to Money in Motion video blog. This is Dan Perkins and thanks for watching. Well, May started off really rocky. We had two very disappointing numbers. GDP was reported for the first quarter and it was marginally up, about 0.75% on an annualized basis, about 15 to 17 basis points for the first quarter, hardly negligible. Last Friday, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that the unemployment rate was still around 5%. However, Goldman Sachs, which led the way, was estimating approximately 250,000 new jobs to be created. They were more aggressive than the street. The street was looking for 220,000. It came in at 160, so huge disappointment in jobs. In addition, the participation rate was 63%. Near an historical low, and the number of people either out of work, underemployed, unemployment benefits are gone, rose to approximately 94 million people. Imagine, ladies and gentlemen, 94 million people out of work, and we think we have a 5% unemployment rate. I think it's probably closer to 10 to 12. So the bond market reacted to the unemployment news to the point that now there's only about a 35% chance that the Fed will move once, and that's no earlier than December of 2016, and some people think it will happen in 2017. If the GDP is revised, which it will be in May and June, downward to a flat or negative number, look for the possibility of a Fed raising interest rates being off the table until sometime in 2017. If then. So what's the Fed going to do if the economy falls into potential recession and unemployment starts to rise? They have one 25 basis points bullet left in their gun, which they could use, but it's not going to do anything for the economy. The problem is not how expensive money is, because money is really cheap. The question is whether or not employers are interested in hiring and expanding in an economy like the United States. The incentive based on GDP is not there. Why should a corporation invest money to expand its business in an economy that's not expanding? Imagine what would happen if we put half of those people that are unemployed back to work. The 45 million, put those people back to work. What it would mean in gross receipts to the Treasury as opposed to an outgo of the Treasury to pay for benefits, welfare benefits. So we have to find a way to put people back to work. Let me be very clear. There's a lot of tangential discussion about issues for the fall campaign. Women's issues, abortion, voters' rights. In my opinion, they all are dwarfed by the first and most important single issue facing America today, and that's putting people to work, jobs. We have a situation over the 8 years of the Obama administration, the average household income has actually declined. And as a result, the government has had to fund more and more. Those of you may be aware that last fall, the Congress passed and the President signed an omnibus tax bill. That bill went into effect, and by the end of April, 6 months since its passage, we've added $1 trillion to the United States debt. We are now over 19 and approaching $20 trillion. Our debt to GDP ratio is 104% right now. So that means that we're spending 104% more, or borrowing more by 104% than what our economy produces. If we can get the economy growing to 2 or 3 or 4%, that ratio will come down. In addition, if we grow and we can control our budget with increased revenues, we should be in a position to begin to pay down some of the debt. I want to give you a comparison. Right now, there's discussion about whether or not Puerto Rico is going to default on its bonds. And the debt to GDP ratio in the country of Puerto Rico is 68%, which means the value of the outstanding debt is equal to 68% of the total gross domestic product of Puerto Rico. 68, and the United States, it's 104. So we're actually in worse shape than Puerto Rico, and yet Puerto Rico is going to default most likely. The question is whether or not the Congress will bail out Puerto Rico and save the investors money. There are some investors who want it to default because they want to stand in line as creditors. I don't know how that's going to play out. It's going to be a tough thing to get a bailout for Puerto Rico in this election year. Going back to the interest rates. The Fed, as I said, only has 1/4% left in their arsenal to reduce rates. Let me make this point, and I think it's an important point for you to understand. Money is extremely cheap today, very cheap. But we don't have any interest in borrowing for the purpose of expansion. What I mean is that corporations can go to the debt markets and borrow at very, very low interest rates. But they're not doing so because, one, they have excess cash, and two, they don't see an incentive in the economy to want to invest money to invest in plant and equipment, but the economy is going nowhere. So with an economy producing almost zero growth, why would a business want to go borrow money no matter how cheap? The Federal Reserve seems to think that if they make money cheaper, that will stimulate people to invest in the stock market and the economy. I don't think so. Also, I think what's going to happen is that once they spend that bullet, and right now because of the unemployment number last Friday, where Goldman, for example, was looking for 250,000 new jobs, the consensus on the street was 220, came in at 160. Very disappointed. The street's now saying it's only a 30% chance that the Fed will raise rates in December of this year, perhaps even later. So what is the government going to do? What is the Fed going to do to try and stimulate the economy if lowering interest rates don't seem to work? I think, as I've said to you before in this program, we are about ready to see negative interest rates in the United States. Negative interest rates is where you have to pay the bank or the government the right to deposit your money. Now, Warren Buffett said 2 weeks ago at his annual meeting that if the banks start charging to put money on deposit, he'll take his money out of the banks. I don't know whether that was a stimulus to create a run on the banks or not, but the idea that you have to have a negative return, the idea that you will lose money in a U.S. government security or a deposit in a bank is a foreign concept to us in this country. But I believe that that's coming. We've seen it in Europe. We've seen it in Asia. I think the next thing is to drive interest rates below zero, to create a penalty for trying to save money and earn interest in the idea of trying to expand the markets. I don't think that's going to work. It doesn't appear to be working in Western Europe, and right now doesn't appear to be working in Japan. And I don't think it'll work here. So we're in for a very rocky time between now and the election as the market tries to figure out who's likely to be the candidates and who's likely to win. Most recent Wall Street Journal, New York, NBC News poll had Mr. Trump up by a few points over Hillary. That'll seesaw back and forth depending upon what comes out of their mouth and whether or not Mrs. Clinton is indicted by the Justice Department for her activities over her email activity. I don't know. I believe that if that were to happen, and I'm not saying it can't happen, but if it were to happen, it would cause some serious dislocation in the markets because we don't know who the people will be to replace Mrs. Clinton as president and vice presidential nominee. My guess is it will not be Bernie Sanders. I don't believe America, no matter how many votes he got and how many states he won in a general election, I don't think the United States is ready to elect a communist leader. So I think it's going to be a tough balance of the year. We'll continue to earn our dividends, and our cash flow will meet our income requirements. But it's going to be a rocky road. And some days it'll be good, and sometimes it'll be bad. I am looking still that the fourth quarter may be a significant recovery if we get a Republican, whoever that might be, elected as President of the United States. So that's it for now. Should you have questions, please feel free to give me a call or send me an email. This is Dan Perkins, and thanks for watching.